We are done with the news. Time for us now to get into a conversation regarding the implementation of the 10-point agenda and the NADCO report. We would want to notify you that this was a recorded interview that we had with Senator Agnes Zani, the chairperson of that committee. As you will realize, we talk about Edwin Sifuna as Secretary General, which has since been overtaken by events because Edwin Sifuna has been fired today. But nevertheless, enjoy the interview and get to see what Senator Dr. Agnes Zani says regarding the implementation of a 10-point agenda and the NADCO report. Enjoy your viewing. Tonight on Prime Edition, we're engaging Senator Dr. Agnes Zani. She is the chairperson of the committee overseeing the implementation of the 10-point agenda along with the NADCO report. And she joins us really to take stock of the process so far. And I'm sure you've seen the kind of conversations around political debates regarding the work that is being done by Dr. Zani and her committee. But who better to speak about it than the chairperson herself? Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You're very much welcome.
Thank you very much.
So probably to start us off, you can probably tell us the progress that you've made as a committee towards this agenda of implementing the 10-point agenda and the NADCO report.
Yeah, very quickly, we're the oversighting committee. We're overseeing the implementation of the 10-point agenda and the NADCO report. So through the 10-point agenda and then the NADCO report itself, what does this entail?
Yes.
It entails us overseeing. So we are not primary implementers. We might be secondary implementers because of the coordination bit, but we are primary overseers. They are primary implementers of the program themselves. For example, the ministries, specific independent commissions, EACC, IEBC, these are the implementers, among others. So what we are doing is identifying the issues in the NADCO report, and there's a raft of issues across the 5 areas of statements that were made along the NADCO. So we're looking at all these and the recommendations that were made about what should happen in terms of implementing those specific issues that have been raised in the NADCO report. How are we doing that? We are then mapping the relevant questions and the relevant issues to the relevant stakeholders. So we've been lately having stakeholder engagements. We've been going to see them. We've been going there to pay courtesy calls to some of them, just to hear how their work is going and what are the issues, where do they think the gaps are. We're also giving them written memorandum guides so that they can send to us memorandum specific about the issues that they're dealing with. And then from there, we're able also to ask for suggestions, recommendations, or any missing gaps that they think are very, very critical. So we are tracking the progress of the NADCO report through the stakeholders. And then the stakeholders, we have various types of stakeholders. We have the public stakeholders in the public offices, and then we also have the public itself. So public offices, public office holders, public institutions, independent commissions, and then we have also the public. So more recently now we've been in the field at the public forums, and we're asking across the various critical issues again. We're asking, what do you think, where do you think we are regarding the 10-point agenda? So at this point, maybe I might want to just say what the 10-point agenda is all about.
Go ahead.
I'll also talk about what the NADCO report is all about in detail, but the 10-point agenda really starts with the NADCO report itself, which gives a raft of various issues that are very, very critical and important in implementing the NADCO recommendations. The first, because when they started, the NADCO team, they started with the statement of issues. You remember this was bipartisan process from 2 political parties, and they wanted to find the raft of issues that are very, very key. So the first one is electoral justice and related issues. Key to that process is restructuring and reconstitution of IBC. What did that entail? You remember at that time IBC did not have commissions, and therefore getting the selection committee and putting the members in place, and the election amendment bill 2024, which became an act on 29th July. So that was enacted just to make sure that process goes. And then we have the boundaries delimitation issue, the issue of ensuring that quotas are established within the constituencies. This was last done in 2012, just before 2013, to get the 290 constituencies. And this needed to be done on the lower side between 8 years to 12 years. So we should have been due now. We think we're about almost 15 years without doing this. And then we have the audit of the presidential elections and a raft of recommendations that have been done. And then outstanding constitutional matters, Article 43 of the Constitution. This is socio-economic rights, the socio-economic bill, for example, which is very, very critical for that process. The no more than 2/3 gender rule, which have really influenced and affected how public institutions run, and the bills indeed, both in the National Assembly and in the Senate. And then governance issue, promoting national inclusivity and in public appointments and that sort of issue. And then we move on to fidelity to political parties. How should political parties be run? How, for example, can we mind and guide the autonomy of political parties so we don't have members moving from one party to another political party? How do we confirm that party lists align? What sort of methodologies should we be able to have? Some sort of proposed legislation in that direction to ensure that happens. And then entrenching funds, of course, we have the National Government Constituency Development Fund, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and then the Senate Oversight Fund, which has been upcoming. And then the last bit is the establishment, entrenchment of state officers. This is the Office of the Leader of Official Opposition and the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary overall. And then now we go to the NADCO, to the 10-point agenda. The first point of the 10-point agenda is the NADCO report itself. And then we move now very closely to the MOU that was signed between the Right Honorable late Raila Amolo Odinga and His Excellency the President, targeting the specific issues. The first is inclusivity, ensuring that everybody, regardless of where they come from, whether it's ethnicity, whether it is education, is included in public, for example, office and in getting jobs. And then the next issue that we go to is the issue of devolution, and entrenching devolution and ensuring that there's no clawback. The language that is used in the MOU is that there's no clawback on devolution. For example, if certain funds have been given to devolution in the last allocation 2025 to 2026, that was 415 billion that was given in the counties. And therefore, how can we ensure that that is maintained? Which other ways can we have clawback, for example, if some of the functions that are still at national level have not been taken back to the counties. So around those issues. Then the other next issue is the issue of youth and inclusivity of the youth. These are a prime group of people in this country that need to be included in most of the matters of this country. And then the fifth is leadership and integrity, ensuring public offices are run without sense of opulence and, you know, leadership for service for the people. And then the sixth, which is always keeps coming up, it's come up a lot in the public forum, is the issue of peaceful assembly and the issue of the protesters and compensation for those protesters. And then we come to the issue of corruption, which cuts across both public service and private service. It becomes quite an issue for us. And then we come to the issue of the national debt, which currently stands at about 12 trillion. 12.07 trillion. You know, is it increasing? It is reducing. How can we manage that? For the first time, the NADCO report and the recommendations, especially of the NADCO report, was that a committee be formed to do exactly that. So this is what we're doing. All right.
Let's take it back to something you mentioned, that you've already begun engagements with members of the public, because they're a key stakeholder in the entire process. And you've talked to people, for example, from Nyanza. And you'll be heading to Coast, I believe. And sometimes these programs are overshadowed by political leaders wanting to be seen a lot as opposed to members of the public. How do you ensure that eventually it is the voice of the Kenyan citizen that is reflected in what you will recommend or in your final report?
It's a very interesting question that you've asked. We had this experience yesterday when we were in Migori County, and we had some of the MCAs coming in there. It was very good because they raised some of the pertinent issues, and when we began, we asked, do you know about the NADCO report? And they said, yes, we do. But as we went on, we realized they know quite a lot about it. And this particular MCA, for example, had a specific issue. I think it was on the audit of the 2022 elections, and he brought us, said, I didn't hear you people speak about this, because we're picking on the various issues that the members were talking about and then highlighting on this. So they do help the leaders when they're there, because they can help also to give direction to the people about exactly what it is. In many of the public forums we are going, it's very interesting, and I think it's very important for Kenyans to always have a public conversation, because this is giving us a chance for a public conversation. People are bringing various issues, and even when you said at the beginning that this is only about the NADCO report, and you explain to them, and you go to the 10-point agenda and you explain, they will talk about, for example, I worked for so-and-so, I was not compensated. I did this particular work, I wasn't paid. They will still bring up these issues. But at the end of the day, when that platform is created in a way that they have understood what it is, they're able to say. So you cannot completely black out, for example, certain categories. You can't black out the leaders, for example. But what we try to do is we try to keep to the agenda. And we say it even at the beginning of the public forums, like, for example, the politicians who are here, this is what we have come to do, and this is the focus. So they might veer off a little bit here and there, because they must do what they must do. Somebody at the end of it will say, oh, and remember, I'm standing for this position, I'm coming to request you. Yeah. They'll put it in. If they get the microphone, they'll put it in. But in a balance of 99%, 98% to 100%, we've concentrated 98% to ensure that we have gotten in the issues that we need to get, then that is sufficient for us.
Interesting, because some of the issues you mentioned there, and particularly those ones that are in the NADCO report, you realize some of them have been implemented, and gradually. So, for example, the reconstitution of the IEBC, we already have IEBC commissioners. But listening to some of the people who judge your work, they say nothing has been done, particularly on the 10-point agenda, on the implementation of the NADCO report, and which you'll remember particularly is an MOU between the ODM party and the UDA party that is led by President William Ruto. Yes. How would you answer critics who say that there's nothing being
Before
done?
even I answer, I think it's important, and this is why at this particular point of the committee's trajectory, it's very important for us to speak to the public, to let them know what has been happening, because I think what the anticipation was is right from the beginning. We were established on the 6th of August. We've had about 4 months, and now we're at the public forums and other stakeholder engagement. I think immediately people expect you to already begin to talk about the issues. Now, at that point, you're also consolidating. What is it? What is the focus? This is not just like a very ad hoc task. It's a very technical task. It's a very specific task that needs specific deliverables. Because when you're looking at the recommendations of the NADCO report, they are very, very, very specific across the board and with specific timelines. So right from the onset, we started off by mapping this whole document and understanding what information goes where, what should be achieved and by whom. So by the time we come to the stakeholder engagement, this was by January. So that gave us just about 4 months to consolidate everything. And then we've been able to come up. So I think a lot of that is going to be demystified when we are now able to explain what it is we're doing. We're able to focus and inform people exactly what it is. They will understand the trajectory that our work is taking. I think this committee is a bit different, for example, from other committees. For example, the Professor Mutua committee, which was about compensation. It was quite straightforward. This is what the issue is. We're looking for who to compensate. But for the NADCO report, the specific deliverables are very, very key and very, very vast. So it took time for us to get there, but we had to get it right. Because in the 4 months then of preparation, there wasn't much engagement we would have been able to do with the public. What would we be saying, for example? We'd be saying, we're working on this, we're working on the other. But at this point now, with this particular document that outlines everything, for example, fast-tracking review of pending bills, facilitating settlement of genuine bills, for example, within counties, very specific deliverables, including, for example, national and county governments to provide food to schools and invest in boarding schools. And who to ask these questions? Ministry of Education, for example. So it has taken that technical bit for us to get there. And then the moment we went into stakeholder participation and engagement, now we were able to, and we've done a lot of for that. So it is important in such a committee to inform the public what it is you're doing. And we've realized even when we go to the public forums and we explain, and we've come for the more recent public forum where at the end of the forum now everything takes over, and now they are speaking, they are saying, talking about corruption, they're talking about the wage bill, they're talking about clawback of devolution or what they feel should happen, for example, within the county governments, and they're talking about this very, very confidently. We reach a point now where we have again to explain to them, because they say, why is there corruption then till now? We say, we are coming in to oversee, to see where the progress is, to get the information from you, to let us know where you think we are. Then we can ask the relevant agencies and say, for example, when we go to EACC, this is what we've come with from the public forums. This is what the people are saying on the public forums. How do we move forward?
For public benefit, Senator Dr. Agnes Zani, and I'm still referencing to what we're seeing on public podiums, particularly in political meetings, because you briefed the ODM party, for example. I saw you go to the ODM party, you briefed them regarding your work. You also went to the UDA party, and you also briefed them the progress of your work. My question is, now what we are seeing in public platforms, is it a deliberate misunderstanding or a deliberate misrepresentation of the facts? I mean, and I'm talking about the political parties and the people who belong to those political parties.
I think it's about the interpretation of what the 10-point agenda might mean in terms of decision-making that the various people want to be able to make, you know, and probably some sort of position taken, you know, to say we feel it has gone. Now, the issue is it's not about feelings, and what we want to do is to make it a very, there's going to be lots of quantitative work, but a lot of qualitative work, for example. And because we're collecting memoranda, we're able to cross-refer back to the various issues and even indicate some of the solutions that have been given. So this report is not going to be a report about subjectivity. It's going to be a report which we even hope we can be able to give, for example, to key policy analysts to be able to look at, because the conversation about, this conversation of the NADCO report and 10-point agenda is about where are we stuck about certain issues and how can we unclog them. And a lot of effort has been made already to unclog and to be able to take us to the next step. But a lot still needs to be done. So we're coming in to say, this is the issue here. So this, I think, is not an issue of subjectivity. It becomes clearly an issue of objectivity. It becomes an issue of data. And for us, we could have also taken a position and say, okay, we're going to say that, for example, corruption is still rife, for example, or, for example, in terms of devolution, the clawback is at this level. But we are getting that information from the implementers themselves. And it's very interesting. We've been to the various ministries, and we've talked to some of the people in the state departments. And the information that is coming out is quite a lot as well, has been done in regard to the various state departments' policy and areas. For example, if we look at the parliamentary affairs one, quite a bit of legislation, because remember the NADCO report was also about various legislation, including the 9 key legislation, including the Constitution of Kenya bill, initially 2023, then 2024 and 2025, the elections offences bill, the statutory instruments bill, proposed amendment bill. All these have been put into place, and tracking to find out where are these, have they been implemented. And we'll find that quite a number still, for example, still at the level of National Assembly and at the Senate. So our task is a technical task, and I think the result of this process will be the report on the 7th of March. When that report is given, people will be able to read and see what work has been done.
So the timelines we're dealing with is up to the 7th of March?
Up to the 7th of March, this committee was established to run up to the 7th of March, and a report will be given at the anniversary of the signing of the MOU, which was done on 7th of March in 2026.
All right.
In 2025.
2025.
2025, we're in 2026
And
now.
So the report will be this year, obviously,
yes.
In the month. But these, the big question of the absence of one of the key principles, one of the key architects.
Don't even mention.
Yeah, I know how it feels particularly and for the entire country. But the absence of one of the key architects of the establishment of this committee, how has his absence affected your workings?
We believe that life is life. It comes and goes. We cannot control. We believe that we stayed with Baba, and may his soul rest in eternal peace, for a long time. So some of the principles and some of the ethos we already have in terms of working through some of the issues. You know, even at the time when this committee was established, and I remember the first task was to give the presentation to the joint PG. And we were able to deliver in terms of the projection of what we expected to do within the committee. Yes, definitely, we're going to miss various levels of guidance and understanding, because these were issues that Baba interacted with. These are issues, if you look at right through Constitution 2020, right through Building Bridges initiatives, the same issues coming up and being articulated and trying to get the solutions. We would stop if the solutions were there. So definitely there is a gap from the death of Baba, but there is also the sense that we've been there within the political parties, we've worked closely with Baba. We also have the task that is clearly mapped up as a technical task that we should be able to deliver.
All right. Let me ask a direct question.
Yes.
And because this has come from ranking members of your party, you're a Deputy Secretary General of the UDA party.
Yeah. Not of the UDA party.
Oh, I mean of the ODM party,
yes.
sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
Just slip of
yes,
the tongue.
Yes, it's okay.
Of the ODM party.
Yes, yes.
The Secretary General of the ODM party, Edwin Sifun, has cast doubt about the implementation of this 10-point agenda. A ranking member, Ruth Odinga, has said there lacks political goodwill. And I think you saw a post she made on Facebook. Question is, from where you sit as a chairperson of this committee, is there political goodwill to implement the 10-point agenda?
I think the best thing is to assess the statements that are being made and why they're being made. And some of the questions you might want to ask is, what are the factual data of information before such statements are made? Is there a sense of factual data? And I'll tell you what happens in politics. In politics, everything will play up within a podium, and everybody will try to assess from which direction things go and where things come from and how can they assess the particular issues. But in terms of the technicality of the process, it's quite clear. And this is what we're focusing on. This is what we're focusing on, because at the end of the day, any statements probably can objectively be made after 7th. You know, when you've looked at the data and said, oh, so this is what has happened. And this became very important then for us. It became very important for us to ensure that that primary education about the public in terms of what this committee is meant to deliver becomes very, very clear. Because minus that, it's going to be very difficult, because you're not sure when it's spoken of, just from what I picked from the public forums, for example, at the end, they're saying, no, you know, we still have, for example, a high wage bill. What have you done as a committee? So, for example, if this is the perception that the politicians you've spoken about are speaking from, then they are already really giving the assessment as public to the situation rather than to the committee itself. So I think there has to be a distinction about what they feel might be happening out there. Just like the way from the public forums, they'll say, oh, for example, we think still the issue of wage bill has not been adequately addressed, for example. The issue of corruption has not been adequately addressed. They might say all this, yeah, and they can tell us that, and they have been telling us that. But then, from the committee aspect, we're looking for the various stakeholders and asking them specific questions. Has this been achieved? Why? How long will it take? What do you think will happen? Where do you think the problem is? Is it a legislative amendment that is needed, so that we can then recommend this to the relevant stakeholders?
I'm asking about the political goodwill question, Senator Zani, because of you actually addressed a joint PG of ODM and UDA that was actually spearheaded by the President and the Right Honourable Raila Odinga.
Yes.
And then you've also gone to these parties, taken the burden upon yourselves to go to these parties to give them briefs.
Yes.
When you hear these statements come from these very quarters, and that is a question I'm asking, is there political goodwill in terms of supporting this process?
I think the political goodwill or lack of it just depends on the people themselves. They need to tell us whether they have political goodwill or not. Generally, from what I have seen in terms of the political parties themselves, they're very keen about this process. We are headed into a meeting, and I'm sure we'll be presenting to our own political parties again and saying where we are and where we stay in this particular process. So if there was no political goodwill or interest, they wouldn't even be talking about it in the first place. And we have to look at where the 10-point agenda came from in terms of origin, especially from the aspect of ODM and UDA, was a feeling that, and from ODM, there was a feeling that these are critical issues that we think are very, very important. In the MOU that we signed with you, the President, and Raila Molo Odinga, these are the issues. We'd like to be part of a process that is actualizing this. We need to be part of the process that is promoting and protecting the livelihoods of the young people. We need to be able, so it's the delivery agenda. We need to be able to deal with leadership and integrity. We need to be able to deal with the issues of, so it's a way to say that these components are very, very important. And for all that, you're able to get goodwill, because that's what, as Kenyans, politically, that's what we all strive to be able to get.
All right. I wanted to ask you, about accountability. Of course, before I give you time now to tell us where these meetings are headed, particularly for members of the public to engage you. But the question of resources and funding, and I don't think the committee can actually run away from this. Where are you getting your funding? Where are you getting the resources to go to these places?
We are getting the resources, and that's why we've been able to go to the resources, to go to the various public forums. The resources have to come from the political parties. So we don't have public resources. So we have to liaise between the key main parties, that is the United Democratic Alliance and Orange Democratic Movement, to be able to amass those particular resources within the, because we can't go through to the exchequer, for example, and get public funds. So far we've been able to...
So these are the political parties' funds?
This is the political parties' funds for various activities that the political parties run activities for. And that's how we have not gone into the public exchequer. We haven't gone into the public kitty for this particular exercise. It is then bipartisan process between two political parties, but two large political parties, and a lot of the issues that come, challenges that come, and solutions that come become part and parcel of an overarching great percentage of the population as well.
We need to put a cap to this thing.
Time has gone so fast.
Kindly mention where you're headed next. You're done with Nyanza?
Yes, we're done with Nyanza. So in the last few days, we started off in Kisumu County. We proceeded to Homa Bay. We went to Migori. And the team tomorrow is going to be at Siaya, in Siaya County. And then we're proceeding to Mombasa. We're proceeding then to the rest of the other regions. We had already put a program for this. But we keep sometimes adjusting the program just a little bit because of the dynamics as we make the planning for the various positions. So every time we are ready to go, then we do announce that we're going to particular places and we're able to get in the public. So far, the public is very, very interested in this process. I think you've had them also even talk on the media. It gives them a chance to say what the issues are, but we're telling them, just don't give us what the issues are. Propose solutions for these, and they are proposing solutions for this. For example, one of the solutions that has come from these public forums is, for example, the importance of digital platforms, for example, for most of these issues. If you can have public digital platforms, and it's one of the issues that also the NADCO report has recommended, and that becomes very, very innovative. So we are tilting the issue of how we're engaging with the public, not just to say what are the issues. Tell us some of the solutions, and we're getting some very innovative solutions that might also give us very, very quick wins. For example, if we can have digital platforms that are open databases, then I think to a large extent, people will be able to see and look and see where the progress is in the issues that are being articulated.
And beyond that, they can bring the memorandum to your physical offices? Yes,
they can bring the memorandum to a physical office, that is Magadi Room at KICC. We also have our email, which is coin10 committee, one word, at gmail.com. And we're requesting for memoranda for the public, especially those who we may not be able to meet, because all the views are very, very critical and very, very important. We'd like to hear. We really, really appreciate the public forums. We're talking to the Kenyans and we're hearing what they're saying. It is so key and so important. And also for the implementing agencies, they have really, really come through, you know, right from the state departments to the ministries, to the various community services that we've been able, community-based organizations that we've been able to talk to the independent commissions. They've been able to be forthright with the information, and they've given us also their memoranda.
Thank you very much, Senator Dr. Agnes Zani, the chairperson of COIN. We call it COIN, but it's the committee overseeing the implementation of the 10-point agenda.
It is the acronym. It is the acronym. We had a choice of saying we are the NADCO Implementation Oversight Committee, for example, but the establishment for this, the statement of establishment, this committee stated clearly it is the committee to oversee the implementation of the 10-point agenda and NADCO report. So we say NADCO report, we say the NADCO report before because of the coin. Otherwise it would be I and one. It would be a bit complicated. So it's 10-point agenda and the NADCO report. So the coin 10. Direct acronym from the name of the committee.
Thank you very much, Chair, for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time, taking time, of course, from your busy schedule, because you have to go around the country, taking views from members of the public. And of course, hearing what is going on, we can only wish you good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. As we put a cap on Prime Edition. Have yourself a fantastic night.